Kamala just turned 60. There's 2 weeks left in this election. By the time you listen to this show, it may be well over 15 million people that have voted. More importantly, Donald Trump just got him promotion. He's now Employee of the Month at McDonald's. If you think that's a dig, I want to be clear. Donald Trump may have just proven to pull a rabbit out of his hat. The kind of rabbit that cinches him both the popular and the electoral college vote. While Democrats think he's conjuring up ways to threaten democracy with his enemies from within comments, there's something even scarier about. And what should scare you is the notion of Kamala stealing this election, the traitors that she might bring with her to the White House, and the dark money that's being used to prop her up. This is Bryan Rudnick. I'm your host of Rally for the Republic. I'm going to get into all this and a whole lot more right after the break. Taking a break here.
This is a battle cry for the American way of life and a relentless pursuit of truth and justice. It comes from a voice with unmatched experience and unyielding resolve. Join us as we dissect current events and tip the scales in your favor. This is Rally for the Republic with your host, Bryan Rudnick.
This is Bryan Rudnick, your host of Rally for the Republic. As usual, I'm fearlessly broadcasting from what will remain the free state of Florida. And in case you haven't seen it, AOC is back in the news. Last week or so, she's fighting with John Fetterman over support for Israel and her general lack of common sense. But this week, she's complaining about Donald Trump working at McDonald's and Elon Musk inspiring voters better than her. You see, AOC is the only politician in America who actually speaks the truth. So you can really learn a lot from her. I'm not kidding. What do I mean? You know, even when she's rambling on about nonsense, okay? I want you to understand that she was the first politician in D.C. to admit to the media, specifically CNN, there's great video footage, that the impeachment of Donald Trump, specifically the first impeachment, not the second one and not the third one that they're planning from when Donald Trump wins next month, but she admitted the impeachment was strictly orchestrated to hurt Donald Trump's 2020 re-election chances. And AOC has another clarion call for the left because she knows they're going to win. Okay, so that's why she's making a whole lot of noise. And after she saw Lizzo, this musician that they trotted out to Detroit, was there campaigning for Team Harris this weekend. You know, apparently that's Lizzo's home state, so they sent her there to make sure the left keeps it blue like they did in 2020. But Lizzo was unfortunately not given the best message. How do I know this? Well, she starts with, "I'm proud to be from Detroit." They say if Kamala wins, the whole country will be like Detroit. Proud like Detroit, resilient like Detroit, the same Detroit that innovated the auto industry and the music industry. The same Detroit that innovated the auto industry and the music industry. She continues with, "Puts respect on Detroit's name." So I thought about that. I heard it. I saw AOC and the left not so happy with it. So I went and researched it. Why are they not happy? Well, if you didn't realize, Detroit's a blue city. Lizzo's comments is like, let's make America like this blue city filled with violence, gun violence. Remember, the kind of violence Kamala Harris hasn't been able to stop. In fact, in my research, I came across FBI statistics from the Biden-Harris administration. The highest gun violence and murder rates in the country. Biden-Harris FBI actually called it the nation's most violent big city. So that's the Detroit that Democrats want to give us, huh? Like the border crisis wasn't enough? I'm going to take another break because clearly I need a little more water in my throat. And I'm going to get back to finish addressing what the Democrats' plan will give us in just a moment.
You are listening to Rally for the Republic with your host, Bryan Rudnick.
This is Bryan Rudnick, your host here at Rally for the Republic. I appreciate you listening to this episode today. As you may know, the other day we were honored to have Sheriff Keith Pearson of the St. Lucie County Sheriff's Department on the program. And we were talking about upholding the law. But with the Democrats, they want to share with us their vision for breaking the law and turning America into blue cities like Detroit. I want to dig in further to what's really going on in these 14 days or less. It depends, obviously, what day you're listening to this episode. But you've got battleground states. That's the term, battleground states. And the A-list candidates and the A-list surrogates are crisscrossing throughout them. Kamala's going here, Donald's going there, Tim's going there, JD's going wherever. They're all around. They're in every one of these states, from Arizona to Georgia to Michigan to Nevada, North Carolina. Trump was there to see hurricane victims yesterday. And of course, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, they're always in play. And then there's, Georgia. It seems like the last couple of election cycles, I did the special election for U.S. Senate there, and then the regular Senate election there right after. So Georgia's always a problematic battleground state. But here the good news is it's coming out looking like it could be for Trump. And that's great news, because more news came out today about how Fani Willis and her office were collaborating with Biden's Department of Justice and Kamala's Department of Justice to basically screw over Donald Trump with lawfare. So it's good to see the people are pushing back on that. Here in Florida, early voting began, and there were some counties, they had trouble with their public websites. They're claiming it has nothing to do with what the actual results are. And no matter what the polls say that the Democrats cannot win Florida, they're not giving up. They're refusing to give Trump smooth sailing in the Sunshine State. So who do they dispatch? None other than Nancy Pelosi. They sent her to Miami along with second gentleman Doug Emhoff, and they send people like treasonous Adam Schiff. And these people are apparently on the Traitor Trail, trying to win over Florida, win over GOP voters, not just helping Democrats rally their base. Because the Democrats have a much bigger plan in store for us during these next 2 weeks or less. So what do you think I mean? Well, I'll break it down for you. Because they got a new plan, okay? Last week, they had other plans like going after black men and brown men, and it wasn't working, and they got to try the next plan. So the next plan, what they're running around doing, Kamala, is she's trying to suppress GOP voting. Yeah, that's a pretty big, outrageous statement for me to make. Obviously, it's a loaded statement. I'm making it intentionally because I want to drive a point, and it's accurate. See, the left is doing this because they're telling you that Donald Trump doesn't believe the election will be free and fair. There are lots of stories in the media they're using, and this is a tactic. It is being implemented to suppress Republican voters and make us depressed. Because if you hear that enough, if you believe the media telling you that Donald Trump doesn't think it'll be free and fair, you probably won't go vote. And they do this by telling you that Donald Trump is being funded by mysterious billionaires, making you think that there's like another fake Russia collusion scandal. But they don't want to tell you that George Soros and people like him are funding Kamala. They want to tell you there's something wrong with the way Elon Musk is helping to inspire voters and financing these PACs and his get out the vote efforts for Donald Trump. They don't want to tell you that when the Democrats were buying votes in 2012 to get Obama elected in the Acorn scandal and buying people 72 cigarettes, and they continue those tactics to this day, or getting the illegal aliens to vote. No, they don't want you paying attention to that. No, it's only Republican tactics that are the problem. And they want to tell you that Donald Trump doesn't have a ground game, no matter what Elon Musk and others are spending. They're trying to tell us that the money's being squandered by these outside PACs and special interests. They're saying that they're not really running a ground game. And I think that's baloney, because I saw some pictures that friends of mine posted on Facebook attending these rallies just yesterday. And they want to tell you that Donald Trump is too old and exhausted to campaign. Quite frankly, I think it's just those journalists who can't believe they're having to work and they're struggling to keep up with the 78-year-old man, because anybody who knows the true Donald Trump knows that he's not an easy man to keep up with. Okay? You had a billionaire making French fries at McDonald's using the fryer. Yes, he was dressed up, and no, I would not have advised him to dress like that. But Donald Trump is one of a kind. He's only basically got two uniforms. It's with or without the tie. That's the man. That's who he is. He's true to himself. And while you may not have worn that to work at McDonald's, that's what Donald Trump wears to McDonald's. And he's a billionaire who's actually willing to go and put himself in the position of making French fries and working the drive-thru to show Americans how much he cares, how much he's willing to sacrifice. He's not letting pride get in the way, because I would bet that his fellow neighbors in Palm Beach aren't willing to do that to help save this country. But Donald Trump showed you there's nothing he won't do to prove to you that he wants this job. And so what does Kamala do? She goes to church. And she takes people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger with her on the campaign trail, and a bunch of people who were former Republicans in former administrations, and they want to pretend that they're these honorable, respectable people. But what are these people not telling you? Because, see, they're telling you they support Kamala, and they're trying to use these people as props to tell you that Donald Trump is unfit for office, or that he's too unstable. That's the word they like to use, okay? But, it's funny, because none of these people, not Liz Cheney, who's a warmonger, and her father, the warmonger, none of them are ever telling you what they did before they ever entered government, or before they ever entered elected office. What are they planning to do in the next administration? How are they planning to profit by dumping Trump and propping up Kamala? Okay, are these people so honorable that they're going on the campaign trail for the greater good, and they're telling you it's for the welfare of our republic? But did they take an oath to say they won't join the administration? Did they take an oath to say they won't take a job in or out of the administration? Did they take an oath to say they won't profit from the military-industrial complex or some other area of the government where they want to sell products? Have they taken an oath that they won't lobby the Kamala Harris administration if, God forbid, she wins? No, because they have an agenda. This is 2024, not 1960, okay? We all know that everybody's got an agenda, and it's going to come out one way or another on social media. So when these people are out on the campaign trail, somebody needs to ask them, what's your agenda? Why are you on the campaign trail with Kamala Harris? Because we know those people have a history of attacking people like Kamala Harris in prior administrations. But now they're standing with this lightweight? Give me a break. These people are not being transparent. They're simply in on the con to fool America. Because what? They're getting out of a comfortable, cushy job office to go help her? These supposed Republicans that were supposedly conservatives, they were supposedly fighting anti-Republican policies all these years. Everything Kamala Harris stands for is the complete opposite of what they spent their careers in politics and government professing to be fighting. But now they're supporting a woman who has no record, was not duly elected. Her candidacy in and of itself is a violation of the Constitution of the United States. And they're going to make claims about our GOP nominee. Why? Because the American voters support him, because he stands up for the American people while they turn their back on their country, their party, the Constitution. That's why those people are what I'm calling the Traitor Trail, okay? They've turned their backs on their party, their country, their friends. They are traitors. These are the people, they're so obtuse, okay? They're trying to convince you that Kamala, okay, and I'm not just talking about the Republicans around Kamala, not her team and everybody, that last week, and of course the media, that Kamala was actually respectful to black and brown men when she pandered to them about marijuana and crypto last week, and when she went to black churches and everything else that she's promising, these false promises that she's making, just like Joe Biden made them and every Democrat, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama made to black America, okay? But somehow Elon Musk is violating the law by inspiring voters to support Donald Trump. And if that's not bad enough, again, they're taking treasonous, lying, dirty, rotten scoundrel Adam Schiff along for the ride. You remember Adam Schiff? He was the man who helped to propel the impeachment of Donald Trump. He lied on national TV. He conjured up fake evidence. Donald Trump calls him pencil neck, and the Democratic Party is rewarding him. They're literally rewarding him with the seat in the United States Senate. He'll be the senator from California. And the only thing that stops that is you and your friends. You get off the couch, you go find Steve Garvey, the former baseball player's website, because he's the Republican running against him. And if you really want to save the Republic, you go find the website for a gentleman by the name of Derek Anderson, who's running in Virginia. In the 7th Congressional District, it takes up Prince William County and surrounding areas. It's to the east of Charlottesville, to the north of Richmond. And Derek Anderson, a former Green Beret, a Republican candidate for Congress, is running against Eugene Vindman. He's the former Lieutenant Colonel Army officer who they propped up to testify against Donald Trump at the impeachment hearing. So he violated his oath of office, went around the commander-in-chief to throw the commander-in-chief under the bus. The media calls him, a whistleblower. I call him a traitor. Lots of us know him to be a traitor. And the Democrats are trying to reward him with a seat in Congress now. You see a pattern here, people? You violate the Constitution, you violate your oath of office, you lie on TV a few times, and the Democrats reward you with the job. So if you want to make a difference in this country, you want to save the republic, just like we defeated Bowman, you got 2 traitors that you could still defeat. With 2 weeks left to go, just make sure you make a sizable donation and you do it quickly, because the longer you wait, the less time they'll have to spend it. And I want to be clear, I have nothing to do with either one of those campaigns. I just think this is the right information to share with the patriotic listeners of Rally for the Republic. Because the left thinks you're dumb, and when you listen to Rally for the Republic, I make sure you're not only educated, but enlightened. Because the problem we have in this country is that we have an establishment and deep state elitists who are running the show. And they don't want Donald Trump in office, and they don't want anybody who supports him having a role in our government. They want you, like the idiots in California and some of the idiots in blue states around this country, to drink the Kool-Aid and then cast a vote that allows them to maintain power. Because that power is not held by people in Congress, people in the Senate, people in the White House. It's actually being held by this unelected deep staters and some of the bureaucrats within the various agencies in our government who know that Donald Trump is going to throw them out. Donald Trump represents everything that is the opposite and antithesis of those people. He talks about power for the people and giving a country back to the people, just like the vision of our founding fathers. They don't want it. That threatens them. That's why this October surprise last Friday, which I think, fell on deaf ears, was Jack Smith the filings of Jack Smith getting released, albeit redacted, from the court. And that was, I guess, supposed to be when they publicized it, or the publication of those redacted documents were supposed to constitute the October surprise. But why would the media not tell you a full story, like the Biden administration meeting with the team of Fannie Willis lawyers to basically do anything they can to harm Donald Trump legally and politically, to turn our nation into some third world banana republic? Because the harder they push to keep this man from being in office, the more you should be asking why. The more you should be asking, what is their agenda? Because when Kamala takes traitorous Liz Cheney with her to Detroit, and it's a forum hosted by Charlie Sykes, who apparently is some well-known radio show host up there, and he was a conservative Republican. In 2016, he decided he wasn't supporting Trump. And he's got this notion that the GOP lost its way. Obviously, if you're listening to Rally for the Republic, you disagree just like I disagree. Because I really believe the GOP got a rebirth in 2016. It's something we needed after the failed George W. Bush administration that Liz Cheney's father basically ran, and they bastardized our nation. They bastardized the conservative movement, and that's probably why Sykes and so many others around him and other conservatives around the country have gotten confused, because they're not used to seeing what we're getting from Donald Trump. They're not used to seeing a man who understands you've got to adapt to populism, and you've actually got to mean it when you say we're going to secure the borders. You got to mean it when you say we're going to shrink the size of our bloated federal government. You got to mean it when you say we're going to cut regulations and tax, because that's not what the Bush-Cheney administration did. They failed. They expanded the size and scope of our government. They caused it to need a larger tax base, but they obviously blew the economy, as we know. And all these things got worse, and the border problem got worse. I mean, you could just go on and on. But, how many times, how many ways, from Patriot Act to the way we treated prisoners from the foreign wars, did people have to question the constitutionality of the tactics of the Bush-Cheney administration? And now people from that administration from their kind of leadership all the way down to lying Liz Cheney are questioning what is the conservative movement, what is the Republican Party. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit because I think understanding that notion is important to the future of our movement. And I'm going to just take a very quick break and get back to you in just a moment.
You are listening to Rally for the Republic with your host, Bryan Rudnick.
Hey, it's Bryan Rudnick. I'm back here at Rally for the Republic. Before we conclude today's episode, I remind you I was just talking about issues to think about related to the conservative movement, the Republican Party, leadership styles, and what we really need to think about. And this is a topic I think about all the time because, as you know, and I talk about here on the show, there's a way to win politically and electorally. But at the end of the day, we have to be true to our principles, ourselves, our cause, our country. At the end of the day, we're trying to protect our country and our family. We need to protect the cause too, or else what's the point? So in electoral politics, we've got great leaders like Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump, and we want them to serve, and we work hard to get them into office. And we talked just a few moments ago about candidates we need to prevent from getting into office. So good ones like Steve Garvey and Derek Anderson can serve because they support the cause. But if for the short term of this election cycle, and of course, looking beyond, we need to be clear about what our expectations are from leaders. And I'll do more on this topic. But for right now, I want to give you some clear examples. And I don't care, by the way, my example is going to start with Ron DeSantis. And I don't care if you're one of those Trump supporters who's still upset with him because he ran for president. Okay, get over it. Ron DeSantis, as far as I'm concerned, is a great man. He has proven to be a phenomenal governor, and he is a true patriot. Not only has he served our country proudly, but his actions in Congress and as governor prove this. So like other Floridians, I want to be very clear. I am so thankful that he was Florida's chief executive when the COVID pandemic occurred. Because unless you were living in Florida, you cannot fully appreciate how much his leadership mattered. And if you were living here and don't understand it, then you were either brainwashed by Fauci and the left or you were living under a rock. DeSantis did something that very few politicians in our nation have ever been able to do. He proved his backbone. He proved his devotion to true conservative principles. He stood up to Fauci, he stood up to the deep state, he stood up to Biden, he stood up to the media and all the other naysayers. And like many of us, yeah, you want to be safe. You heard about COVID and he jumped to do things. There were some quick lockdowns and shutdowns. He wanted to be overly cautious. But when he realized what that really meant, what the left was trying to do, the dangerous agenda around COVID, he fought back. He fought to open the state. He refused to trample on constitutional rights. He refused the onerous rules and ordinances. He refused to have government tell you how to live, how to work, how to play, even how to pray. And he refused to let parents' rights take a back seat to what the government wanted to tell us to do about how to raise our kids. But Governor DeSantis is a man. And like our Bible says, the man was made from an image of God, so he's not perfect. And he made a mistake. Now, other people might have other reasons to think he's made mistakes, whether it's related to COVID or other things. But the issue I'm going to talk about is not specifically related to COVID. And I wish he didn't make this mistake, but he did. And I'm still going to be a supporter of Ron DeSantis, even though he made this mistake. It's a mistake that a lot of chief executives have made. So when we look at the office of president, as an example, one of the things we talk about is who is going to nominate judges. Well, we have the same issue with governors. Chief executives make nominations of judges to high courts. Donald Trump did it. He even made some mistakes. Ronald Reagan did it. He even made some mistakes. I mean, I'm talking even at the U.S. Supreme Court. But in this specific instance with Ron DeSantis, I'm referring to Renatha Francis, who he put up as a nominee to appear in the Florida Supreme Court in 2020. And she's now up for retention. So I think this is an important lesson for conservatives nationally, but I hope my listeners in Florida truly pay attention. Because at the time in 2020, she was a sitting judge and a member of the Florida Bar, Florida Judiciary, and those people are members of the Florida bar, and they have to adhere to these rules of ethics and what's called the Florida judicial canons, which are specifically rules that govern the conduct of judges. Judges in Florida have to be honest, just like every officer of the court, which means lawyers. She professed to be a member of the Federalist Society. Governor DeSantis has done a great job, like President Trump, trying to make sure that we get members of the Federalist Society, conservative, constitutional conservatives, appointed and on the courts. So they will do what we conservatives want to have happen in the vision of our founding fathers. So Governor DeSantis nominated her, and she was ineligible based on the black letter writing of the Florida Constitution in 2020. The Florida Constitution has a rule about a 10-year member of the bar in good standing. She did not meet that requirement. There was no gray area on this. And I'm not putting blame on Governor DeSantis because he's a politician, and a politician's going to do things the way a politician does things. And he may have been pandering to certain voters and using her background to sell a good narrative. And it all made sense. Unfortunately, Governor DeSantis had detractors, and they caught on because of all the people Governor DeSantis could have appointed. Renatha Francis was highly unqualified, not just legally unqualified. She was academically unqualified. She was legally, professionally unqualified, and it made her a good target. Just so you better understand the point and some of the disclosures I want to make, Renatha Francis was a judge in Palm Beach County in 2020. When she was nominated by DeSantis, and again in 2022 when he renominated her, which got her on the bench this time because she was finally legally permitted under the Florida Constitution. And we don't have enough time for me to get into every problem with this woman, but she is basically somebody who went to a Cracker Jacks box law school, and she has a reputation for being a lightweight. And when you review her legal work prior to getting on the Florida Supreme Court, it makes it abundantly clear what a legal lightweight she is. Her late husband was politically connected, and he used his connections to help navigate her in and around the judiciary. First was a job, and I think she clerked at an appellate court in Tallahassee area. Then in Miami-Dade, she got on the circuit court. Very little stint of practicing law, by the way, like maybe a year or two. And then she moved on to the bench in Palm Beach County, where she began her history of violating people's constitutional rights. She threw a blind man in jail. She had a history of degrading parties in her courtroom. This is a really serious problem for which judges actually get punished for. And my understanding is she was so rude and so wrong in the way she handled some situations with some mothers in family court that two of them committed suicide. I personally had a run-in with her where she violated my constitutional rights, and I had to appeal. Of course, because she was so corrupt and incompetent, I won. But guess what? That costs people money. It costs them time. It is the wrong way for the judiciary to act. And she, on her way up the ladder, she made a couple of applications to be on the appellate court and the Supreme Court. And she had character references, which were lawyers in the community who gave her those references, and she would allow them to appear in front of her in her courtroom, and she would constantly fail to inform opposing parties of that relationship, of that very close, incestuous relationship with her character references while she was giving them favoritism in her courtroom. Now, Florida law, the whole judicial process, is set up to avoid these injustices and improprieties, okay? They're set up to avoid these injustices and improprieties, okay? This is what makes people, regardless of your background and political affiliation, this is what makes people angry, is somebody who games the system for their own personal good when they are trusted or entrusted with the public trust. So Francis got nominated in 2020 after this lightweight career, bending the rules, bending her ethics, okay? And the first thing she does upon being nominated, okay, or appointed in 2020 was to agree to break the law. Let me say that again. The first thing a sitting judge did upon agreeing to be nominated and appointed to the Florida Supreme Court, her first act was to break the law because she could not stand there next to the governor, agreeing to have her name there without agreeing that she would break the law. She had to know she was breaking the law, and this was very overt, and she knew she would benefit from breaking the law. She knowingly and actively participated in breaking the law and seeking to violate the Florida Constitution. Fortunately, Florida Supreme Court has conservatives on it. And when somebody challenged her, they said she was wrong and they reprimanded the governor. But she's the one who should have been reprimanded. And she steps over people and continue to step over people. And there's some great media stories out there. I think it's in the Florida Bulldog about how she abused her power at a swimming pool at her apartment building in West Palm Beach and threatened a mother that she didn't like the way she was handling something when Renatha Francis wrongfully picked up her child at the pool without permission. And Renatha Francis called child services on the lady. And this is not the only story about this woman. They go on and on. But as you can imagine, few people are going to be strong enough to voice their outrage and want to expose the actions of a sitting state Supreme Court judge, a woman who has clearly benefited from her political connections. So I want to encourage Floridians, okay? If you're a Florida voter, okay, I'm giving you one thing. You go take a look at it. Go read the articles on her. Go see her credentials compared to the credentials of everybody else on the Florida Supreme Court, and you'll see quickly what I mean when I say she's a lightweight. Renatha Francis is unfortunately the symbol for everything that is wrong and corrupt about the judiciary in America. She, like Kamala Harris, has benefited from political patronage. Renatha Francis is unfit to serve. Like Kamala Harris, she is a DEI hire who has benefited from political patronage. Republicans should be ashamed if we support her retention. Our governor did what he thought was right. Unfortunately, it was wrong. So if you, the Republicans in Florida, think that just giving this woman a blank check and retaining her is the way to go, you're going to end up with another Juan Merchan, the judge overseeing Trump's New York trial, or a Tanya Chutkan, the one overseeing the Jack Smith case against Trump. And that's why we have to be so discerning right now as we're about to elect people to office. Who do we nominate? Who do we support on the ballot? Because if we're trying to save this country, the last thing you want is somebody who intentionally broke the law, somebody who's violated people's constitutional rights, somebody who has a history of those kinds of behaviors. But that's, my fellow Floridians, what we're getting from Renatha Francis and why you must oppose her retention on the Florida Supreme Court. Any Republican who stands by Renatha Francis has basically sold their values down the Yellow River like Joe Biden sold out America to the Chinese. The conservatives, patriots who listen to Rally for the Republic, those of you fighting to help get Donald Trump and other great patriots elected to office, we are the watchmen for the Republic. So we cannot become the hypocrites and the traitors and take those kinds of actions that have become the hallmark of the left. In my final words, I want to just remind you, I'm very passionate about this, not because this is a personal matter, but I'm somebody like you who is a true believer. I like to win elections, but I'm not interested in seeing people rewarded who violate our laws, our values, or simply use offices like Renatha Francis to harm others. When they start with the "do you know who I am" routine, which is what Renatha Francis did to that mother at her pool at her apartment building, that's exactly the kind of politician you want to throw out of office. Because even with this mistake, I want to be clear, I'm still a strong supporter of Governor DeSantis. I believe he has demonstrated the kind of leadership, ethics, morals that is so unlike any other elected leader we've had. I think he has a true North Star. I think he sticks to it. And I think that makes him a bit of an anomaly to so many of his detractors in the media. It's what I think makes him so special, and I can't wait to support his next run for any office. And like you who listen to Rally for the Republic, I share the vision the Founding Fathers had for this country. So that's why it's up to all of us to protect it. It's why I need you to take what I just said very seriously. I don't want you wasting your time watching the clips of Tim Waltz on The View or any of the comedy shows or whatever late night shows you went on last night. I want you to take this episode. I want you to share it with your friends, your family, and your loved ones. And I want you to continue to share and like us on your social media profiles. I need you to continue to join us and rally for the Republic with each and every episode. Those of you who are interested, to continue engaging with us. Feedback at rallyfortherepublic.com. And I need you, most importantly, to stay in this fight. I never want you to give up on the Republic. And for those of you who have the means, I'm encouraging you to call my friend Bob Rubin over at Rubin Wealth Advisors here in Boca Raton, Florida. That's RubinWA.com. Bob Rubin, a true conservative freedom fighter, a patriot, a great supporter of the Second Amendment, and many conservative causes like CPAC and Turning Point and many others. Bob is a personal friend of mine who helps many conservative and patriotic Americans find a way to invest their assets without having to deal with all the DEI malarkey. So please give Bob Rubin, RubinWA.com, a call, write him on his website, and go meet with him. I think he's given free consultations. I promise, if nothing else, you will enjoy a conversation with Bob Rubin. So schedule it at RubinWA.com. I'm Bryan Rudnick. Make sure when you call Bob Rubin, you tell him that I sent you. And I'm going to thank you for listening to Rally for the Republic one more time. God bless you. God bless America. God bless our friends in Israel who are still under attack today, getting no help from Kamala Harris. Have a nice day.
Thank you for joining us on Rally for the Republic, where we are fighting for America's future. Visit 1776coalition.com. Rally for the Republic podcast is available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, and Google Podcasts. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and download. Join Bryan Rudnick next time as we continue to fight for the American way of life and challenge the hypocrisy. This is Rally for the Republic.